Brown Act as amended by California Assembly Bill number 361, effective September 16th, 2021, providing for a public health emergency exception to the standard teleconference rules required by the Brown Act. The purpose of this is to provide a safe environment for the public, staff, and committee members while allowing for public participation. The public may address the committee using exclusively remote public comment options. The committee may take action on any item listed in the agenda. And I don't have to read the rest now. Is that correct?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, excellent. That's great. Moving on then, I call the meeting to order. Justin, a meeting of the Complete and Safe Streets Committee of Brisbane, California to order. Justin, if you could take the roll, please.
Sure. Chairperson Patrick Tainer.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Alex Bain. James Christie.
Present.
Christian Cabrera.
Here.
Linda Detmer.
Here.
And Alex Lau.
Here.
We have a quorum, correct?
Yes.
Justin? Okay.
Yes, we have 5 members.
Okay. The first order of business is the adoption of our agenda. I assume everyone's had a chance to look at it. Could I have a motion to adopt the agenda, please?
Motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll
Second.
second it.
And Christian, did you want to remove an item from the agenda?
Yes, I guess this is the time where I do that. I was wondering if we could postpone or push the, I believe it's item B for the next meeting. We need to do some review internally with the subcommittee.
Will you name the item? Because B is parking.
I think it's B.
Item C.
Yeah.
Item C.
Is it the bicycle safety on Bayshore Boulevard at the northbound 101 off ramp?
Okay, so you're requesting item C be taken off the agenda.
So you make
Yes,
a
correct.
motion to approve the agenda, removing item C. You could say that, Christian.
Oh, I got it. Okay, make the motion to remove item C, bicycle safety on Bayshore Boulevard at the northbound 101 off ramp from the agenda.
And
Do
adopt.
do I have a second on that?
Second.
I open now for discussion before we vote on that. Is there anyone who has any items to comment on that? Linda?
I feel we can table discussion. I believe the chair of the subcommittee made a good case to table it.
I agree.
Okay. If I might throw out an alternative, at the last meeting where we did not have a quorum, looking at the video, there was a great deal of very good discussion. Would it be appropriate to have staff just review that discussion with us briefly as the agenda item for this? I throw that out to the subcommittee as an idea.
Christian?
Well, I mean, we did a lot of diligent work, but we just don't feel that we have, review everything internally in terms of Linda and Alex. But I think we're almost there.
Okay.
So it's just fine tuning it. We just don't want to throw it out there as it is right now.
All right. Okay. Next meeting, you think?
Yes, correct. Yes, definitely.
Okay. All right. I guess we have to take roll call on that. Is that correct, Justin?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So if that's, did we have we had a motion and a second?
Yes, we did. And
The
we had
motion was
discussion.
changed. Does somebody need to remake that motion with with the
Oh,
change.
no, I thought it did not change. I
With-
thought we're keeping it off the agenda.
It was on the agenda.
Right.
Right, Christian
was-
made
it
a
was-
motion
Christian made a motion to take it off.
Okay,
and adopt the remainder of the agenda.
Right.
okay, got it. Second,
And just for the record, so Linda, you're making the second to that substitute motion, yes?
yes, I will.
Okay, Justin, would you take roll call, please?
Yes. Patrick Tainer,
Aye.
Alex Bain, not here. James Christie,
Aye.
Christian Cabrera,
Aye.
Linda Detmer,
Aye.
Alex Lau.
Okay, the motion is carried. Let's talk about approval of the minutes. The first minutes that were sent out to us are for the meeting of August 2nd. Are there any changes to those minutes, additions or deletions, corrections? Could I
think
have,
we-
go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, Patrick. I think we skipped oral communications.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, you're right. Are there any comments from the public? Are there any public members present?
There are no members of the public present,
Okay,
and I did not receive any written public comment.
all right. Then oral communications are closed. If we could then move to approval of the minutes of August 2nd. If I understand correctly, there were no changes, additions, or deletions. Could I have a motion to approve those minutes?
And sorry, just to clarify, this would be for approval of the minutes for both the August 2nd meeting and the August 30th.
No,
meeting.
no, let's do them
Or-
one at a time. Let's do them one at
One
a
at a
time.
time.
August 2nd had a quorum, and I think we should do it separately. So this is
Okay.
just for the minutes of August 2nd.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Justin, would you take roll call, please?
Patrick Tainer,
Aye.
let's see, James Christie,
Aye.
Christian Cabrera,
Aye.
Linda Detmer,
Aye.
Alex Lau.
Aye.
Okay. The minutes of August 2nd have been approved and adopted. The minutes for the notes for the meeting of August 30th, I have a question on point of order here. That was a non-quorum meeting. Is it appropriate that we call those minutes? I've reviewed them. I think there's great information in them. There's great information in the video that's posted on the city website, but I don't know if that qualifies as official minutes or simply meeting notes. Any comment from staff? Any direction here?
In the past, we have brought the minutes for meetings conducted without a quorum for approval.
Okay, Okay.
So we have done that before.
okay. Then regarding the minutes for the meeting of August 30th, are there any additions, deletions, or corrections? In that case, could I have a motion to accept those minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay. Justin, if you'll call roll.
Patrick Tainer,
Aye.
James Christie,
Aye.
Christian Cabrera,
Aye.
Linda Detmer.
Can I abstain?
Sure.
Abstain.
And Alex Lau.
Aye.
The minutes are adopted. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, discussion with our city council liaisons. First of all, I'd like to welcome Mayor Karen Cunningham and Councilperson Colleen Macklin to our meeting. We're very glad to have you here, and we would appreciate your feedback and comments as setting as to what we have been doing, as well as things that we should be doing coming into the future. So the first order of business then to discuss with you is the 2021 work plan. And I guess I'll just go through this point by point and briefly summarize each of the items. The first item was to study the extension of pedestrian routes beyond the initial study area. This project is ongoing. It is different than the Safe Routes to School pedestrian routes project in that it has been expanded to a general walkability in terms of safety and accessibility. At the end of last year, December 2020, we completed one phase of this, which was looking at the staired walkways, and we made recommendations that have been incorporated into the master plan. And the part that we are currently looking at is actually sidewalks throughout the city. Most particularly, we have been focusing on Valley Drive, the area around City Hall, Park Place, Park Lane, and access to the trailhead of the Crocker Trail in terms of having sidewalk access for that. And then we plan to look at Bayshore as looking at further down the road, sidewalks along Bayshore Boulevard. That project is ongoing. There will be discussion on it later tonight. I guess Karen and Colleen, if you want to jump in or ask questions at any time, we're open to that. And okay. Number 2, develop education outreach to schools and the public regarding pedestrian routes to schools. That was completed this past year, and I think the subcommittee did a tremendous job on that. We got notifications and materials out to the schools, both Brisbane Elementary and Lippman. It was in the blast, and we also had it in the Star. I think it may have also been in the Chamber of Commerce publication. I don't remember that one for sure. Review of shuttle service and evaluate opportunities for improving service and amenities at stops. That was also completed December of last year. Recommendations have been made, and we're waiting on funding for those. We've looked at some design elements in terms of seating and maybe rain protection, but have not moved forward on that until funding might be secured. Those are for the shuttle buses along, and we picked 2 shuttle bus stops. One on Valley Drive, which is the most heavily used one directly across the street from City Hall. That's the most heavily used shuttle bus stop. And then another on San Bruno Avenue, the most heavily used bus stop in that area, that would be serving primarily Brisbane residents. The other one serves primarily, the one on Valley Drive would serve primarily people coming to Brisbane to work.
If the chair will permit, I'd like
Yes.
to ask a question, please.
Yes.
Did the committee review Sierra Point shuttle stops?
I don't think so. Where is that specifically?
Out at Sierra Point?
As in Sierra Point?
Marina.
The marina, right.
Oh, no, we absolutely did not. No. I don't think the shuttle bus route goes out there at this point in time, does it?
I don't have an answer.
Okay. Karen, Justin, go ahead.
I'm sorry, there may be commute buses. I don't know if there are any formal stops. That might be something you want to look at before you close the door on this,
Okay, all right.
because you've got a lot of people that commute to those different office buildings.
Yes, yes.
There's
Okay.
a private, I think it's funded by the businesses, Sierra Point Loop shuttle service. There's information on the web about it. I think it's just maybe, I'm not sure how often it runs. It may just be commute hour. I know that the committee a number of years ago talked about, well, what if people that work out in Sierra Point would like to come into town at the lunch hour? You know, we haven't specifically gotten requests as a committee or to the extent that we know as a city for that, but it's certainly something this subcommittee could look at.
We will put that in our work plan on that. Thank you. Okay, setting sight lines and safety of specific intersections as listed there. That is in process. And we did look at, I'm trying to remember all of the ones that we brought to a conclusion. The one at Glen Park at the corner of the elementary school at Glen Park. What's the cross street there? I forget. At any rate, that one we did. The others are still in process. Improvements to San Bruno Avenue Bayshore. We have not yet done the post-installation appraisal. It's now been a few months, so I think it probably would be time to hear back from staff and police as to what their thoughts were on that, but we have not done that PIA as of yet. Investigation of potential one-way streets and slow streets. We have looked at slow streets, but we have not looked yet at one-way streets. And so we will be doing that in the next few months. Review of parking issues in central Brisbane. This has been a major project with a lot of really good hard work put into it. And it is just now coming to the point of making recommendations, and we will be talking about some of those ideas that the subcommittee has generated here tonight. Bicycle safety issues on Old County Road. We made recommendations in terms of signage. Those were implemented. As we understand it, there will be resurfacing and restriping of Old County Road in the coming future, and staff is developing the plans for how that will be done and the layout. So we're waiting to receive those plans to comment on, review and comment. Opportunities to enhance emergency vehicle ingress at Tulare. That has been on our table for a long, long time. And Karen Kenzer, Justin, please help me where we are on that, because I've kind of forgotten if we were able to come to a conclusion on that or recommendation or not. It's a difficult one.
Sure. Justin, can you promote me to panelist again? I think I finally was able to connect by computer, but in the meantime, on my phone, we did decide to table that. We'd come up with an idea that involved, thank you, trying to convince a private property owner to let us use, there are a couple driveways that connect, to use their driveway as a 3-point turn for fire engines, because they come up to Larry and they come to a dead end and don't have a nice big cul-de-sac that would be, you know, a current standard now. But we kind of tabled that because that property owner was not so amenable, and we were going to kind of watch that for changes in the future. We talked with the fire department about whether they could respond with a smaller vehicle, but I think they actually came to a meeting. I'm not sure how long ago that was when we talked about those type of issues, fire issues. And they said they need to reply to a call with the full engine because they may be out and get the next call, and you need to be prepared even for the next thing, even if it's just like a medical check or something like that. So I don't know, Linda was involved. I don't know if you want to add anything, Linda.
Yeah, I don't recall somebody coming to the meeting. I recall that we had requested some information, and that was what we got back. But I don't recall talking with anyone directly about that.
Okay, maybe that was just staff.
Perhaps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Receive and comment on the Baylands transportation plan. I think we're waiting to receive that. So that's something which is still on our plate. Karen and Colleen, I ask you for comments and direction, if you would not mind.
Elaine, take it away.
Okay, so I have your list from February, the work plan. So as I see it, you actually should have added now number 11, which is your expansion of the safe routes to school.
Well, that's actually under number 1, expansion of pedestrian routes.
You said that that was having to do with walkability of the city and that it wasn't having to do with safe routes.
Oh, in terms of safe routes to schools, that is correct. Yes.
Right, because on your agenda for tonight, you have expansion of safe pedestrian routes to school. So those are two different things.
Oh,
Am I misreading that?
no, you are correct. We've kind of moved, the two projects are the same kind of ran together. And so I think we just haven't titled them properly.
Okay, so on items that are on your work plan that don't appear on tonight's agenda, because I don't know if you put all of your work plan items on the agenda all the time. You've got the pedestrian routes beyond the initial study is not on the agenda tonight. And you have study the sightline safety at intersections is also not on the agenda. Reviewing the improvements to San Bruno Bay Shore intersection for safety is not on the agenda. And the receive and comment on Baylands transportation circulation plans is not on the agenda as well.
That's
So
correct.
my question would be on these 1, 2, 3, 4 items, do we have any committee members assigned to make sure these reach completion?
Okay. In terms of pedestrian routes beyond the initial study area, that is actually under item F, and it's I take responsibility for it being incorrectly titled. We're calling it pedestrian routes to schools. It's actually expanded beyond that, and it's the more general question. Karen?
I was just gonna say that when we got the committee initially did safe pedestrian routes to schools, and we got funding and combined it with GI. But the way that we got grant funding was that we said that these routes serve pedestrians getting to all kinds of locations in the city centers, to the library, to the community park, to the community center, which was the same building at the time, and places that people wanted to get to, not just to schools. And that helped kind of sell that combined grant. So I think all of us kind of blended those together. It's like pedestrians, kids go to school and home, but they go to the library after school, and they go to the park, and they go to their friend's house. And we're kind of thinking of pedestrian routes and walkability that impact the most people going places where they gather.
Is there any
Thank you.
directive to expand the safe route to school?
Directive? No, I think the committee just, the staff looked at it like, we've got you guys, this committee, you're the ones that walk in town a lot more than us. And we want to know what the public thinks the priority is. So when grants become available, we can kind of, go for those and try to make things better.
Okay, I understand. Thank you, Karen. I'm asking only because there was a long-standing agenda item on complete streets back to when I was there after the initial safe routes to school to eventually expand it. And I don't know if that was ever done. So I'm kind of asking that question as well.
Yeah, so I would say officially we haven't, the committee hasn't come up with a whole phase 2. They looked a lot at the walkways in central Brisbane, between upper streets and lower streets, and which ones are a priority and how could we get those funded. But they didn't necessarily holistically look at everything in this. It's a big apple, so they're taking bites out of it, I think, is the approach. The priorities we've heard from the community and from the council are to, get some of these walkways, get some steps in there.
Okay. And the sight lines, is someone assigned to that?
That,
Yes.
I think, you guys are maybe
That's,
forgetting that we went through everything on that list and staff's in the process of getting those implemented.
Okay.
We came up with a lot of mirrors and a couple of maybe pulling cars away from the intersection to increase the sight lines. If you want specifics, probably Justin could speak to some of them, but I think we've looked at each of the committee has looked at each of the ones on the list, and we've met and come up with a plan about them.
So that's actually complete?
Other than they're not installed.
Okay. And then the improvements to San Bruno Bayshore intersection for safety. Patrick, you indicated you're awaiting information from the police department?
So that was, the installation of the no left turns was delayed with COVID, and I want to say it went in just over the summer. So it's only been a few months, and I don't know how quickly we should be looking at that, but I think, we need at least a few months of observation and data in order to tell whether it is helping the safety situation or not. We're probably approaching the time now when we should be looking at that to see if it's doing what we intended.
And reviewing the bicycle safety issues on Old County, that's coming closer to completion.
It was completed, but now there's a resurfacing and restriping project that the city will be doing there. So we will reopen and rediscuss that as those plans become finalized as to what is to be planned for Old County.
Okay, so circling back with a couple things now that have been indicated as completed, the education outreach and also the sight lines. I get you have 9 items on your work plan still to be completed. And one of them you're waiting for Baylands transportation circulation plans. So my question as a bit of a challenge to all of you is, I don't know if you continually prioritize these things, but some of the older ones, we spoke about this in February. How do we drive these things towards completion? Because we met 7 months ago. I'm going to call it 6 months because there was a month off for all staff vacations. And 6 months, we still have some of these same issues.
I would say we haven't even talked about reaching back on San Bruno Bayshore, and I think it's good to do that, but I do want to, we haven't talked with this committee about what we just kind of are implementing with open space and ecology, that we didn't realize particularly that a committee that is project-based and ad hoc subcommittee doesn't have to put notices out about meeting, whereas an ongoing non-project based committee has to notice the subcommittee. So we consider each of these project-based and wouldn't leave them open indefinitely. San Bruno Bayshore, we implemented the things that we wanted. So I think staff can update on that and we could restart that committee. But I think that's done in terms of implementing the things that we decide that council told us we could do and funded for us. So that, maybe I see a couple of these in a little bit of a different place. And we took like a couple of months off in the summer. We kind of had a glitch and we had to cancel a couple of meetings. So it took a little time to get rolling for us.
So would it be feasible to say that these could get completed by December?
Like I said, I think the ped routes is a big one, and we probably should draw a line around that so that it's a reasonable thing to accomplish and it's not every street in Brisbane and can we get a ped route on it or not? And shuttle service, sure. I think the only thing we looked at, improving stops. Patrick did the initial work on that quite a while ago, and then we spent the Measure W money taking care of the safe route, the green infrastructure part of the safe routes when it was really challenging to do on hillside streets. But we have figured out which ones we want to implement with the money we have carved out that got renewed this year. So I think that one, other than Sierra Point, is pretty much done, and that subcommittee
Yes.
could look at that. I would look to the committee to tell me how long it would take. Sightline's done. San Bruno Bayshore, again, staff update, and then decide whether you want to reopen that and take another look, I think.
Mhm.
One-way streets, boy, that is a toughie, because we know that it would be a lot better for fire response and for traffic flow and for speeding and for the narrowness. But we know the community is going to have very strong opinions. So I would say that one, no, is going to take a bit, and then take longer. And then parking issues, again, same kind of thing. Like, big change like that doesn't go down easy. I think it would be super optimistic to say we could. I mean, I think the committee could tell you what policy they recommend by December on each of these easily.
Yes.
But implementing them and have them playing a part in implementing and doing outreach with the community and hearing responses and investigating those and getting back to people with more meetings, that'll take a lot longer.
Okay, so I guess what I'm looking for here is, I looked up some old agendas. The Mariposa and Monterey one-way streets have been on the agendas even before February. So when we talk about things taking more time, I understand that. I completely understand that. But what I'm looking for here is, it seems like some of these just keep getting pushed further and further and further. And I just would say, without deadlines on these, they're going to keep getting pushed. And I don't want to speak for the mayor. I think you want to hear from the mayor, but we've had some discussions. There are other things we'd like you to work on, but they're not going to come until some of these things are cleared off. And I don't know what to do anymore to get that accomplished. So you have to tell me what you think will get these things completed. And I understand, it sounds like actually there's been more on here completed than we even knew. That's great. And I so appreciate that. I compliment all of you for it. But we're very anxious from the council level to get this work plan cleaned up so we can go on to some other things. And
Okay.
I know everyone's time is precious, but I don't know what's bogging it down. So I'm asking.
If I might make a comment.
Yeah.
Colleen, I'll take responsibility for this, that we haven't gotten everything done. But I think if you could wait a few days so that we as a committee can, as we go through the subcommittee items tonight, we did this a year ago. We set deadlines after our liaison meeting, and actually when we did that, we got all things done. And so I would say tonight, as we go through our agenda, we can set deadlines on the projects based on what the subcommittee feels they have left to do. And then we can convey that to you. Would that be acceptable?
Sure, I'd like to see, and maybe our mayor can chime in now, I'd like to see maybe a report from Complete Streets to the council in December or January, much like Open Space does, detailing all your accomplishments. I don't think the general public is aware of that. I know initially you're not getting a lot of public participation, and the only way that's going to happen is if they're aware of what you're doing. So we need to also bring your accomplishments to the council level. There's a lot of people who watch those council meetings.
Okay. I think we can do that. Karen, Justin, we can make that kind of a deadline, don't you think? In terms of a written report? Okay.
Yeah, we're doing it. I'm doing it for another committee. So there's it's the same timeline. It makes sense. At the end of the year, they're each getting updated. That comes from staff to council, unless Colleen, you're looking for a presentation by the committee or something else. Typically staff is putting it on the agenda.
Okay. I think we'd like to see it as a committee, right? And
and I was, go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's a good opportunity to recognize all the work you've done. And that's something all the different committees and commissions don't always get. So I think it's important we not overlook that as well, because
Yeah.
we're asking you to do a lot and we appreciate what you're doing. It needs to be publicized.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and this list would have maybe been better if we had put the status for each of the items now, where we are now, but we didn't have much notice that you guys were coming, so apologies for that.
Madam Mayor, you want to weigh in?
I do, but before I do, Linda's had her hand raised for a while. Linda, please.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
Mayor. And Councilmember Colleen, thank you very much for coming to our meeting. I just wanted to reflect that at our last liaison meeting, Colleen had mentioned that she'd like to see some of these agenda items move faster. And what I've noticed is that sometimes remarks are made like, we got to get this off the table and we don't have time to, it may not be said in those words, but we don't have a lot of time to fool around with this, is the sense that I get from the committee, that there's more of an urgency. And I oftentimes don't feel like our job has been completed. Just my point of view.
Could you give an example?
I was going to say the same thing, Linda. If you could expand on that, because it doesn't make a whole hill.
You know, it wasn't very long ago at a meeting where someone said, we've got to get this off the table because our liaisons want it done. And I specifically can't remember who it was. It may have had something to do with parking, but I don't hold me to that. Also, I believe it might have been to do with the bicycle, the green thing over by the freeway. And I'm on that subcommittee, and I still feel like there's work that needs to be done on that subcommittee. So I just want to let you know that some of us are working very hard to get these things off of the agenda as quickly as possible, but sometimes we just have to stop and take a breath and make sure we're doing a complete job. And again, that's my opinion. And the other thing Pat mentioned, Old County Road and the sharrows that we were planning to put in there. But at one of our meetings, it was mentioned by one of the staff members that there's another plan for the sharrows there, that parking for large vehicles, delivery trucks, that sort of thing, was possibly going to take the space. And we didn't get a lot of clarification for that, but that's the kind of information that I feel like the committee needs to know more in depth so that we can try to find a way around some of those issues. And I think it's on the agenda tonight, but I'm not sure. Pat would know. That's all I wanted to point out. And I thank you for the opportunity.
If I may.
Thank you, Linda.
Sure.
Mr.
Yes.
Chair,
Yes, please.
if I don't want to give the wrong impression, I'm not asking the committee to move things off the work list just to get the work list clear. I understand that some of them are going to take longer or there can be delays. I just wonder if you have allocated all your committee members maybe spread too thin, where you could actually move some of these ahead if you had more hands on deck working on them, rather than just one or two or three people. If you had an entire committee that said, our goal is to finish this one project, and if you worked in teams of 2 or 3 and it kind of divvied up the work, so that you could say, this is our goal, we're going to get this done because the people working on it, they need help. So I'm not trying to micromanage you, I'm just making a suggestion.
Appreciate that. Thank you. I think we will consider that especially on the larger projects that require a lot of work. That's a good idea. Mayor Cunningham, I think you had did you have a comment as well?
I have plenty to say, but You
Okay.
guys, first and foremost, Christian and Karen Kinzer have their hands up. They go before me. Christian?
Yeah, so I was looking at the Complete Street Safety Committee 2021 work plan, and it's just an observation that I think may be actually a suggestion. If you could do bullet points under the titles, and because a lot of this, these titles, they have multiple goals or objectives, and some of those have been completed, and some of those are not, and some of those you need to complete something in order to complete the other. So, for instance, like number 1, I do if this is related to the alleyways, that project was completed, I think by the end of last year. So there's moving parts, but some of it is in other words, it gives you the impression that the project might be in pause or it's not moving along, but in reality it is moving along. So maybe putting some bullet points and do a check mark on the stuff that's moving along might convey a more realistic point. It's just an observation.
Thank you, Christian.
Karen?
Karen
Kinzer.
Linda, you have your hand up?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't take it down. I don't know how. I just,
Okay.
Just go back
I think you touch,
oh, I see. Okay, lower hand. I see
click the
it.
same icon, yeah. Karen, you have your hand up?
Sure, my computer
Karen-
keeps glitching. Apologies. So now I'm back on phone, but
Okay.
there we go. Just to point out that a couple of things community members have brought up to us, such as like the bike lane at the 101 off ramp at Bayshore, and we formed a new subcommittee and have spent time on that. And again, we didn't edit the work plan. That was what was adopted by council, but it was added in the middle of the year. So we've been doing more than those 11 things. I just want to point that out to the benefit of the council members. And I wanted to just say one thing, sorry, about if a whole committee works on something and you split up into small groups, we just want to be careful that there's not cross pollination, if that's not the right word, but in terms of the Brown Act, if you have a majority, you've got a quorum. So just want to be careful of that if we work as a full group, not at official meetings.
Thank you.
Okay, my turn?
Yes?
Okay, good. Thanks you guys so much. I mean, the last couple of years, things have been in such turmoil that things that we thought were, the way we did things weren't, and things have been turned upside down, and going out and meeting in person to look at things that are on a work plan might not have been, even feasible in some instances. But for us moving forward, I really appreciate the work of this committee and all of our committees. I've been on them. I've been, part of a volunteer place within this city for 20-something years, 26 years, I think. And some of the things that we have on agendas when we look at things are not comfortable conversations to have. And if we've had pushback in the past, there's always reluctance to attack that animal again. For example, the one-way streets. I know there was one-way streets that were put up on Humboldt at some point. I wasn't part of it. I don't really know the information on it, but I know it was a pretty nasty pushback, and probably Randy or Clay could talk about how that went down, and it didn't go down very well, apparently, but I don't have that information. So I know there are topics on this work plan that are going to make people really uncomfortable. And quite frankly, that's your job. That's my job. That's Colleen's job, is to put those things out there regardless of whether they're comfortable or not. And, it's our job to get stuff done. So, when I first ran for city council, it was like safety and getting things done. They were the two things that I really wanted to see happen. And we've been slower in the last couple of years for all the obvious reasons, but let's take the break off now and let's go. Karen Kinzer, I have a question for you. did we apply for that BPAC thing against this year? I wasn't part of it, so I don't even know. Quick question for you.
That was a question for Karen, right?
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, can you say that again?
The beat, remember when I was on BPAC, we applied for that San Benito to Alvarado walkway thing.
Yeah.
And we didn't get it, and that was political, and I was pretty upset about why it was political, but it was. And I'm wondering, have we applied for that again this year?
The grant just opened. It's due in November. So we were talking about how to refresh our application. And I had a new idea for the video. I guess I could just bring it up right now. Is they asked for a video. They don't actually review the site. And I was thinking maybe we could try to get a bunch of community members out at the top to just have a spokesperson in the front and say, hey, we really want this walkway. Can you something that motivates the
Right.
people that review it to understand how important it is to the community.
Well, some of the people who were averse to approving this for Brisbane are no longer part of that committee. I've been trying super hard to work on relationships within, well, I'm on CCAG and I'm on the CCAG legislative committee. And I think we could, and I'd be happy to do whatever I can personally outside of, being on city council to help you guys do whatever we can for that. Because when everybody was there 2 years ago, when we did this, they saw what a treacherous situation our children were in trying to get from San Benito down to the school, which was completely unnecessary on a street that is one lane with nowhere for these kids to go if some coon comes barreling through and not watching what's going on. So if you need my help on that, I am 100% there to help you with that for sure. Because I think it's super important. And that was a $450,000 grant that we really could have totally in our hands there. The other thing that I know is really a bugaboo, and it's a bugaboo for staff, and I've had many conversations, is the parking. But I'm not afraid to tackle that one either. And I think we need to deal with it. I'm only going to use Tulare Street because I live here. But when you've got someone who owns a business on Tulare Street, that their overflow parking takes up 50% or more of the parking on Tulare Street, we need to make people uncomfortable and say we need to deal with it. I know it's been something in the past, just like one-way streets, that's been very unpopular. But let's go for it, you guys. It's like, you're on this committee, you're here to make a difference. Don't be afraid. Go for it. And I'm here to back you up on anything you want to do. And if staff says no and I say yes, we're going to get into a conversation about it, and may the best man win. But let's not back off on the things that are really important and go for it. So that were the things for you, Karen. Sorry, lumped most of that back on your lap. And so the other thing I'm kind of hearing here is there's a lot of work to be done. Do we have enough people on this committee? I mean, I know the plan says up to 7, but is that enough? And what do you guys think? I mean, if we have all of these important projects like, the walkability and the safety and the shuttles, the evaluating shuttles, there's a lot of stuff here that, you can't spread yourself thin. Should we be reevaluating how many people need to be on this committee? Do you need more help? What does that mean? And, is it helpful if we put more people? And I want to hear from staff and the committee on this. Randy, what do you think? I'm going to put you on the spot right now.
Thing. So I don't mind being on the spot, but I think if you were going to add more people to the committee, you're going to have to come up with more staff resources as well. And there's only so much staff support we can give, especially with someone in our midst being only here for another 2 weeks.
So putting more people on a committee, what does that mean for staff?
Yeah, It requires more staff support, absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Bacon?
If I might comment, we are short one person at the moment. We had a resignation over the summer.
Yes.
So we are short one person, and I think we all feel that. Prior to that, though, I'd say we've moved, I thought, fairly well. Would that person plus two more make us move faster? Probably. But at the same time, we recognize that not everyone has the same amount of available time. I'm retired, Linda's retired. We probably have the most available time to go out and do field work. Everyone else works, and so they've got to squeeze it in between, the work and getting home to family and so forth. And I think we do that. I think we do that pretty well.
Okay, I do have a question about the lack of quorum. I mean, for me, every single committee, all the commissions, everything we do in this city is of equal importance. And if we don't have quorums at meetings, that really upsets me, because it means that, to me, either there's a miscommunication somewhere, or people are not taking the position that they've been appointed to seriously enough. And I would like an explanation from anybody who can tell me why this might be occurring, because we never have that on the city council. We never have that on the planning commission, and we never have that on Park and Rec and open space. So, I want to know, if there's a problem, how do I fix it? How can we fix it together? But there is a problem, and that needs to be resolved, and I want to resolve it tonight.
So we did not have a quorum at the last meeting, and quite frankly, including myself. And that was my fault. I was overseas and I thought I had a connection till I was in Asia, and early in the morning for the meeting, I thought I had a connection, and right away I found out I did not. And that was my fault. However, looking back at the time that I have been on the committee, which I think now is at 4 years, maybe 5. If I remember correctly, we have lacked a quorum only twice during that time frame. So you're right. We should never have a situation where we do not have a quorum. But on the other hand, I don't see it as an endemic problem or a trend at this point in time. I think everyone on the committee is very dedicated. And I think everyone kind of looks forward to having the meetings to talk about what they've been working on. We have a lot of camaraderie between us because we go out and do field work together. We actually, in a work sense, we spend time away from committee doing things, surveying, looking at parking, et cetera, looking at intersections. And so, at least from what I have seen, I don't think at this time we have a quorum problem, but I'm open to what anyone else might think on that.
And that was my last comment, actually. So, thank you.
Anybody have anything to say? Okay.
I mean, yeah, I've been on this committee for about 40 meetings, and I think we've only missed quorum 2 or 3 times out of 40.
So that's 5%.
Yeah.
That's high. In terms of a percentage, that's more than we should be. So I take Karen's comments correctly that we need to improve that. But I think everyone does take pride in their serving on this committee and enjoys it and loves doing the work that we do. Okay. And feels the importance of it as well.
Thanks, Patrick. So my last comment regarding this is, if we proceed with a meeting without a quorum and we have stop time, lots of stop time, which is taxpayer dollars that hopefully they can be doing something different with, and we proceed with a meeting and we have a discussion that we can't do anything with, we have to come back and have that discussion again when we do have a quorum. So I just really want to put out how important I think every single committee that we have is supremely important in our town. And you know, we got to think about if we're not, if you can't make it to a meeting, how do we relay that? So you know, if we've got the time, we can redirect staff time, or we can redirect the committee members' time if we do have time to other things. And I just really want to be respectful of everybody at every minute that we put in as volunteers. I think I work for about $1 penny an hour at this point, but I truly value every single thing that I do. And I respect every committee exactly the same. Everybody gets the same level of respect. Does that make sense? Am I just rambling with you guys, or is that actually making sense? That I'm personally reaching out that, you know, our kids' safe routes to school couldn't be more important to me. The walkway along Bayshore from you know, from San Bruno back to visitation, where the kids who live in the trail park walk to school is super important. Like I understand. So the more we can be cohesive and together and work faster on getting these things done, the better. I'll shut up now.
Okay, thank you, Karen. I had a little bit of audio difficulty on some of that. I couldn't quite grab all of it, but I'm gonna have to go back and look at the video, or let's watch the video. But appreciate your comments.
Thanks, I'm done ranting.
May I chime in to something that our mayor has said?
Yes, please.
I would just say that the importance of this committee is going to grow exponentially. If we were dealing with Brisbane in a very slow growth mode before and dealing with things that needed attention, imagine where it's headed with all this build out at Sierra Point, potentially the Baylands, much more infill work going on within central Brisbane. The importance of this committee, what the mayor and I have discussed, is absolutely going to be intrinsic to how we are as a city. And we take that very seriously. And you are the committee that is empowered to find the things that maybe no one's had time to look at. It's not oversights. It's just, there's so many things. And that is your responsibility, and it's an important one. And we depend on that from you. So, as the mayor said about the quorum, you know, if you can consider you each have a responsibility to each other to show up and be there, there should never be a lack of a quorum, ever. Somebody should be there. You owe it to each other. Because when you only meet once a month and you have a month off where staff's off, you're meeting 11 times a year. You've got a lot to accomplish every 30 days. That meeting is so important. When you don't have it, you've lost 2 months out of a year. So if you can look at it that way and consider it your responsibility to your fellow committee members to show up. So, because we do appreciate, we value what you do, and we have a lot of plans for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from mayor or from councilwoman, councilperson, or other general comments? Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. We appreciate your attendance. We appreciate your support. And most definitely, we appreciate the comments and suggestions you've made here to us tonight. Thank you. Let's move on in the agenda then. Moving on to item B. Justin, I think you can take down the work plan from the screen. The item B is residential parking in central Brisbane. James, you're the lead on that. If you could give us an update.
Yeah, I'm going to start with just a brief little history since we have staff and our council liaisons present, and Pat and Linda, please feel free to add anything you feel I might miss before I get to the recommendations we came up with as a subcommittee.
James, if I might, we do have a lot to go through. I think that's a good plan. We do. So if you just be targeted.
I'm going to try to do this like a minute or two.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, we've done both a quantitative and a qualitative study on parking in Brisbane. The quantitative study, we chose 5 residential blocks at random, and we found that all 5 were above capacity, as in when we studied them, they were consistently, spaces were filled beyond 85%, sometimes 100 or beyond, even beyond 100%. We then also did a survey of residents in town and asked them if they perceived parking as a problem. Let me confirm the numbers. 80% of those we surveyed believe that parking is a problem, and 70% surveyed wanted something to be done about it. And we asked them their thoughts and feelings on certain potential solutions. And we got about 64% of those surveyed who supported a street sweeping program and a parking permit program. We got stronger support with the street sweeping program. So that's kind of some of the history. And we have met as a subcommittee and have come up with recommendations that we wanted to run by the liaisons to see if you guys were, how you felt about it and whether you wanted us to study them further to give you, we wanted to find out from you guys if you would even welcome these as official recommendations. So we're very much want to hear what you have to say about our recommendations. So Pat, Linda, anything else I missed?
You're good to go.
Okay.
I just wanted you to mention how many people responded to the survey, because I thought it was a pretty impressive number.
It was a pretty high number. I think it was a roughly 320. It might be a little north of 320. Pat and Linda, anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's good.
All right.
I didn't realize we were presenting this to the liaisons tonight because we have not discussed it as a committee, the final decisions that were recommendations rather.
Yeah.
This is actually in our agenda. So it's not so much being presented to the liaisons as it is open for committee discussion. You are correct in that, Linda.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we met as a subcommittee and we came up with recommendations that we wanted to present to the committee. So this isn't what we're officially recommending. Just wanted to give the council liaisons that qualifier and staff as well. But essentially we came up with a kind of a tiered way of implementing parking solutions. The first tier or first step essentially would be a PSA that we kind of have a working title of be a star, get a car off the street. So this would be a public service announcement or campaign that would go on for roughly 6 months, where we would encourage residents of Brisbane through articles in the Star, in the Friday Blast, on the signboard, announcements made at council meetings, essentially trying to get out the word to encourage people to do a few things. One would be to, if they were parking on the street and had off-street parking that they weren't utilizing, either a garage or a driveway, to start utilizing it. And also if people had non-operational vehicles, either in a driveway or on the street, to get rid of them essentially. And the hope of this was that through this PSA, it would influence people's behavior, and it would lessen the number of cars on the street and increase the amount of cars that were using off-street parking. And there would also be a raffle component. If people could provide us evidence that they did this, they would be entered into a raffle and they could win possibly a portrait from Rosanna Lyons, although we haven't confirmed that with her. I mean, these are just ideas. Or they might get a $50 gift certificate to Melissa's or to Julie's. But we really want to make this Brisbane specific. We may involve older members of town in the PSA. It's inspired after Texas's anti-littering campaign, Don't Mess with Texas, which was very effective in lowering the litter problem in the state of Texas. After this campaign completed, Complete Streets would do another quantitative and qualitative parking study. And if we determined that the parking situation had improved, we wouldn't make any other further recommendations to council. Linda, do you have something you want to add right now?
There is something I wanted to add.
Sure.
Part of our discussion was getting council involved in thanking people or recognizing people for their participation. Do you want to go over that part?
Yeah, like certain individuals could get their name on the signboard. They would be commended during council meetings. Essentially, we would try to make this as positive and affirming as possible.
Linda's idea there is that people respond to positive feedback, and when that happens in a public forum, it's even a stronger incentive. And we talk about raffles, and that's a good thing to always have, but just the public spirit, the civic spirit. I am a person of Brisbane. I did my part to help my city. We think might be an inducement for people to motivate them to participate, to get a car off the street.
A
And it's a
certificate
no.
and their name on the signboard.
Yeah.
An announcement at the city council meeting of who has this week or at this, as of the last meeting, has taken a car off the street. That's the soft approach we want to take first. And there's probably more, James, you need to say.
Of course. So after we have completed that campaign, Complete Streets would then do another quantitative and qualitative parking study. And we will, comparing it to our past data, we'll see whether or not the parking situation has improved. If it has, we don't plan any further action. But if the parking situation has not improved, our recommendation or the next step in the program would be a street sweeping program, which would be during certain times, either of the week or of the month. People would need to move their cars off of certain streets so that they could be cleaned. And the thought behind this program is that it would create an inconvenience for people who park their cars on the street and give them further incentive to utilize off-street parking. Christian, I see your hands raised.
Yeah, I apologize if you have already mentioned it, but I'm just curious, what would be a clear or significant improvement, of parking? What's the end goal in those terms?
We haven't come up with a specific figure. That is something we would need to determine. This hasn't been completely fine-tuned yet, but if we get the green light from the whole committee, if we get the green light from the council members, the liaisons, we would start fine-tuning and coming up with a detail such as that, Christian. Thank you for asking. And so after the implementation of the street sweeping program, we'd wait 6 months And then we would again do another parking study. And if the parking situation has improved, we wouldn't recommend any further action. If it has not, the next step would be to have a ballot measure in town, in which we would have the citizens vote on whether they would support or not support implementing either yes or no on a parking permit program. And if the measure passed, then there would be a parking permit program implemented in central Brisbane. So that's kind of an overview of what we've come up with as a subcommittee. We definitely want to hear what the council liaisons, your thoughts on this, and we definitely want to hear what staff and the other members of the committees who are hearing this for the first time. We definitely want to hear your thoughts.
Thank you, James.
You're welcome.
Not to put anybody on the spot, but I'll start with the committee members, and I'm just going to go across the streams. So Christian, I'll start with you. Have you had any thoughts or comments in addition to what you just brought up?
Well, I mean, other than I think they have an excellent framework, and obviously, and as the council will see, it's a lot of work. But I just encourage them to pursue it. I don't have any specific comments either against or favor right now.
Okay, thank you. The only other non-subcommittee subcommittee member is Alex Lau. Do you have any?
Yeah, I think the baby steps are good. I would be hopeful that, with the PSA that people may change their behavior, but maybe I'm just not maybe I'm just a bit skeptical, and I don't know if it's really gonna change much behavior. So if we were gonna go that route, my only suggestion would be to have definitive deadlines on, when you're going to reassess and survey the situation, so that you could, it can proceed.
Thank you, Alex. Linda, did you have anything to add?
Just a little bit. I think that moving from a very, very soft approach, as we talked about it in our subcommittee, more of a Brisbane approach, a community approach to, supporting the community by getting a car off the street. That's a really good way to start. And then move into the harder things all the way up to parking permits, if necessary. I know we worked hard on this and tried to come up with an evolution to the problem, and I support it. I think we did the best we could.
Thank you, Linda. I guess the part that I've only lived in Brisbane six years, I think it's 6 years, maybe 7. So I haven't been here very long, but I've lived in a lot of places. And one of the things that strikes me about Brisbane is how deeply everyone who's been here a long time really cares about Brisbane and is very proud of their city. And so I think to be skeptical of the soft first step, I think is wise. But on the other hand, I see this as an opportunity to let people maybe have an outward expression of what they feel inside, which is a great pride in their city, a great deal of civic pride. And maybe it's just a way to tap into that in a very tangible way. It beautifies the city. It solves a problem for each other's neighbors. So I'm optimistic of that, but I think there is maybe a 50-50 chance that it could go, and I think that's actually pretty good odds on a PSA type of project.
Yeah, I would be hopeful that there's some incentive for residents to clean out their garage, or maybe change, or get rid of some vehicles that they're not using, or consolidate, or maybe hopefully I'm hopeful that there will be some change in behavior, but usually you need to have some type of incentive to stimulate that.
I think one of the parts of this that we thought was important was to let everyone know that if the good, happy phase doesn't work, that there are other
Yes.
phases down the road.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's
Yes.
good, Pat.
Yes.
So
Yes.
carrot and stick together. Staff, do you have any thoughts?
I was
Justin?
gonna
I'm sorry,
say
go ahead, Karen.
something about the street sweeping that we were throwing all the ideas out that were potential. And the idea was, we used to sweep all of the residential streets. We never did enforce on those. And that this could be once a month. It could be every other week. It could be every week. We would have to explore the resources. It would cost money to sweep streets, but we would plan to enforce if someone didn't move their car. And we thought that that was, in a way, parking permit light, because you don't have to go get a permit, but you do have to move your car off the street every so often. And if it's inoperable, again, it's inconvenient, and that might get people to eliminate excess cars. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Justin, any thoughts?
The one thing I wanted to add to that is that, if we do end up implementing some expansion of the street sweeping zones, what we can do is we can start with a pilot test on San Bruno Avenue and Visitation Avenue, where we already have those signed for as street sweeping zones, although the parking guidelines on those are not enforced. So, since we already have existing street sweeping areas in those streets, that's somewhere we can start as sort of a pilot before we implement citywide, and just get a feel for how effective it is by starting with the test.
Question to the subcommittee. Do we have any idea what percentage of vehicles parked are out of non-residents?
We weren't able to determine that data because we didn't collect plates.
And
But we sort of did. We collected the last three digits.
Yeah.
We collected the last 3 digits. Yeah.
we weren't going to be able to get that information, though.
Right.
Yeah.
There was
I'm
one
wondering,
Texas plate. There was one Texas car that showed up day after day the time I was out surveying. So there was at least one. Okay.
I'm wondering if, let's say we did open up more spots, the residents, and we have more available spots, but would that encourage non-resident parking? Like if people do utilize the city, to park here and then use this as an area to commute from, for free parking or not? That's
You guys,
something.
legally, we can't get the plates and give any of us that information, but it's a good point. Anyway, I'll be quiet now.
That's, well, to follow on that, I mean, I think the committee has talked about this quite a while back, maybe different members, is that if you want to restrict who can park on a public street, you need a permit program to only allow people that live there to get a permit. And then, the way they are applied now, I think in a residential, you would want only, that concern might be more in the evening, but others can park in other parking permit areas in San Francisco for a couple of hours, but then they need to move if they don't have a permit. So you can't restrict to just residents unless you have a program, an ordinance, a policy that can manage that.
When we started this, one of the concerns was non-resident airport parking. And I mean, I'd seen it in my neighborhood. They stand by the car and up comes the Uber, where I live, we don't have a parking problem, so it's not a big deal. But I think many in central Brisbane did feel it was a problem. And my neighbors who felt it was a problem, they'd call police and get a sticker put on the car. And that's
Yes,
always
the big
available.
orange sticker. The big
Yeah.
orange sticker.
Yeah. Do our liaisons, oh, so I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, we did have Commander Garcia address that, and he said it was actually though fairly nominal, where people would park and then go to the airport. He said like there was like 2 or 3 incidents over, I think it was a few year period.
Okay.
That's what I remember Commander Garcia saying at a previous meeting.
I'm
But
sorry, I absolutely disagree, 100%. But
talk to
Those
Commander
were just,
Garcia
those
unless
are
I'm misquoting him.
Those are the only
Those were
only
just-
the vehicles that were reported.
Okay,
You know,
all
that
right.
people
Yeah.
complained about. Right.
Maybe you should get Commander Garcia on your speed dial, Mayor Cunningham.
Do our liaisons wish to make any comments on the work so far?
Mr. Cabrera has his hand up.
I'm sorry.
Christian has his hand up.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Christian. Yeah.
Well, I think it's probably a good time to to do this type of work. Times are changing. A lot of people could get away by not having a car. They could Uber. There's public transportation and so forth. So and having a steady timeline is going to get to the end of this, and you definitely need to get it. It's going to be interesting. How can you tease out how many people have extra cars, or if there's some other activity going on?
Thank you. Okay. Do our liaisons wish to comment or wait till we actually send it to you as from the committee?
I'd be happy to comment, but Colleen,
You want to go first?
you go right ahead.
Okay. Couple comments. I like your PSA idea of trying to be positive. Carrot and stick approach. You mentioned non-operational vehicles. There's already a way to deal with that. They just need to be reported to the police. The police have removed many non-operational vehicles. The difficulty there is usually the neighbors don't want to be the one to report. I've heard that from many people in town. Can you get rid of this car? I don't want to have to call. I think that should be a bit of a focus of your program, that there is a mechanism to do that. When you mentioned the street sweeping, I think the first thing that popped in my head was, why are we penalizing all the people who comply? They got a couple vehicles. They're not creating the parking problem. You got other people who have 10 vehicles. We had a car down here for 2 months that didn't move. Why are we going to penalize everyone on upper streets that are very tight already in the city? I've lived in San Francisco decades ago. And when you can't park on a street sweeping day, you end up walking 8 blocks away. Now translate that to Brisbane with hills where people are going to what? Walk from the lowland streets where there might be a little more parking, and they're going to walk all the way up to Kings Road or Humboldt. I think that is not going to be well received, just my feeling on it. And why penalize everyone? Ballot measure, I don't know. I think you'd have everybody vote no. I think this has to come something a little stronger. I believe, my impression is the time to float this for a year or two has gone. We have an acute problem. And it's really, it's not pervasive with a massive amount of the population. It's a small number that are creating the havoc for everybody. That's all I've got to say.
Okay. Thank you.
I can happily chime in.
Mayor?
I can happily chime in and just help everybody along with this process. If we, and I'm actually a proponent of permits for one reason and one reason only. but I know it's not a great idea. So can we figure out something that is between a permit program where everybody in Brisbane has a permit for X amount of cars, we pay for it, costs a lot of money for the city to manage it and then enforce it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's an ugly situation. But we do have in certain places in Brisbane, certain groups of people, certain businesses, certain individuals, whatever, who completely abuse the situation of parking in Brisbane. The people who park in Brisbane and go away for 4 or 5 days and use us as a free parking lot, not okay with me. The people who own businesses that are car repair businesses and park their overflow parking lots because they've got a small lot at their business, so their overflow repair shop is on the streets of Brisbane, is not okay with me. And this is not random, and I'm not sure, James, love you to death, not sure where you got those numbers from, but that is not correct with the amount of complaints and the amount of cars that are parked on our public streets that either don't belong in Brisbane because they belong to a business, or we have become the San Francisco short or long-term parking lots. It's cheaper to park here, jump in an Uber and go to the airport. That has to stop. I don't know how to fix that. I've talked about it with staff for years. I've bitched about it before I was on the city council ad nauseum. And I don't know what that is, because I know when I spoke to our chief, our police chief, several years ago, and said, you know, hey, I want to do this on my street. I still have the pieces of paper to go get the petition to get, you know, permits on Tulare Street. That, you know, that problem then just gets moved from one street to another. That I understand. I'm not sure what to do about it, but I'm just going to throw that out that, you know, I wanted to do this on my street because there was one particular person on our street who owned a business that many times had at least 22 cars parked on Tulare Street that were not residents' cars. They were his business's cars. So we have that problem to look at, and I don't know how to resolve that. I'm going to lay that back on you guys. But that was completely unacceptable for the people who live here, who on my street, and if you haven't been on Tulare, please come up here. Most of the time, there's no parking on either side of the road. So if you've got someone who's abusing their privilege, using it as a business parking lot, nobody can have a gas. They can't park their own cars. So big problem. But I want to throw that back at you guys because I think there's a resolve, and I really don't know what it is. But you know, if we put in parking permits all over Brisbane, it moves the parking problem from one street to another, as I was educated by our chief, and I get that. So, all right, I'm going to put that on you guys. Thanks. There's my comments.
If I may add.
Was that helpful?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
If I may add one thing. When you talk
Yes.
also about encouraging people to get rid of certain vehicles, that you might find some people don't want to be identified because the neighbors all know who they are and don't want to turn them in. And I don't think they want to be identified. That's something I just would think about.
Okay.
But also, when you try to get certain vehicles out of certain parts of town, being in central flatlands of Brisbane, we get a lot of people start parking down here for a month, and then they move, and then they come back again. So there's a lot of moving vehicles around. When you talked about looking at 5 blocks where spaces were maxed out, I don't know if you've considered identifying the most impacted areas and running a pilot program. What that would look like, up to you. Because if in fact you can encourage people in a certain area that this is serious and we're rolling out a trial of something, I think that will wake everybody up.
All
And
right.
staff is probably having cardiac arrest going, do we really have to implement this? So please go easy on them as well.
Thank you. James, you want to wrap up then, and we'll move to the next item?
I mean, the council members have clearly gave us a lot to think about, but just to sum up, I mean, so I definitely got a clear direction from you, Councilmember Mackin, that you do not like street sweeping because it feels like it penalizes those who follow the rules. And Mayor Cunningham, it sounds like you support parking permits, but with reservations. Am I mischaracterizing what you just shared with
No,
us?
I 100% support the idea of parking permits. However, when I brought it to staff and I brought it to everybody in the top echelons of our staff, it was brought to my attention that if, say, me living on Tulare Street, or you living on your street, or Colleen, we did San Bruno. Okay, so say we chose your street and our 3 streets and we went around and we got the petitions and we signed up on those petitions to restrict parking, and these 3 streets did a pilot for parking permits. It moved the problem elsewhere. That was what I got, and I was like, yes, that's true. So somewhere in the middle of all of that, we've got to figure out, is there something else we can do? You know what I'm saying, James?
So the reservation was just only some having a parking permit on a few blocks, because that would move the offenders to another block. But if it was all throughout central Brisbane, would that address the potential pitfall of that?
It possibly would, but honestly, to do that is going to be a massive undertaking. So initially, the thought was, let's look at the streets that are a problem.
Mm-hmm.
My street is a huge problem. You know, certain other streets are a huge problem. And I was like, why is this guy who owns a parking garage where he repairs cars parking 24 cars on our street, and none of our residents have parking for their guests? So I brought that up and I had conversations with everybody in the city, and it's like, because this guy is just going to move those cars to another space. But to implement parking restrictions throughout the town is a huge undertaking. I'm not saying I don't want to do it. I would, but it's not something we can just do. It's huge. So let's tackle, you know, I gave you what I would like. I would love parking restrictions on Tulare Street, but then it was brought to my attention that I'm just moving the problem from my street to Thomas or Lake or San Bruno or Glen Park. So it doesn't really solve the problem. It solves my problem. And I never thought of it that way. So if we can all think in a bigger perspective on all of these things, I think we're going to come up with a better solution for a lot of things. And it's not easy, because I was like, you know, I was trying to think, you know, there's no, you know, Tulare Street's a 1-lane street to begin with. So there's very little parking to begin with. But am I going to just push the problem off onto your street, or your street, Colleen, or your street, Christian, you know, down the street to Linda? I don't know, Patrick, let's just move it over to your house. So that's the issue that we're kind of dealing with. It's a bigger, broader thing that's not, I'm not happy with anything I've got. But I think we need to, you know, it's like, throw these ideas out and let's everybody put their brains together and figure it out, you know?
I'd like to make a motion that we move it to Patrick's.
There you go. Patrick, it's coming to your house. Does that
There's
make
lots
sense?
of space.
Does that make sense, you guys?
Yes, it does.
It's, you know, yeah, it's a really tough problem that it's not, you know, nobody's taking lightly, but when you start to think about a holistic view of it, it's really ugly. Christian's got his hand raised, so it's Alex. Right. Stirred up a hornet's nest, I'm
Thank you.
sorry, guys.
Thank
Alex,
you.
yeah,
Oh, it was just a thought that came up to me for maybe the subcommittee to consider, you know, as part of that incentive of like big more garage space to park the cars. I don't know if the city would consider like seeing if there is a company that would provide like a group discount if individuals in the city, if residents in the city were interested in even like purchasing lifts for the garage. You know, at a discounted rate, you know, that the city could negotiate for residents, you know, which you know, could maybe potentially help, you know, with storing their cars or parking their cars in their current garage, just, you know, as like a little incentive or something. Just a thought.
Okay.
Because lifts aren't really, they're not that expensive nowadays, and they can fit in most garages, and you know, you can have 2 cars on one side of your garage there.
You mean a vertical lift inside?
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
They're like 2,000 normally, you know, I think around 2,000 or a little bit more than that nowadays. And but if the city was able to, you know, find some company that say, hey, you know, we can, you know, you have potentially 100, you know, customers, you know, maybe can get at a certain rate for all the residents interested. But
That's an interesting idea.
You know, I guess my comment would be a lot of neighborhoods in the city have the permit approach. And when you say it will be a massive undertaking, do we have an idea what is the cost, or why is it not feasible? And what will be the feasibility? And also, will that also, you know, trigger the need to have like one of those parking officers, you know, in those little cars running around enforcing, I guess, the parking rules?
Clay, this one's yours.
I think the subcommittee, we've got our work cut out for us, but
Yeah,
Coming
we
back
should definitely
to-
meet again. Yeah.
coming back to the comments of our liaisons earlier, James, do you want to take a stab at a deadline for having recommendations to the committee?
I mean, we really have to digest council member comments, because I got very clear direction from council member Mackin that the street sweeping is a no-go. That was one of my takeaways. So we definitely need to kind of revisit this. But yeah, we have been studying this for over a year. This is what we have come up with. So January.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I think that's a good goal since the holidays are upon us.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that's a good target.
I'd like to do
Okay.
it sooner, but I don't know how realistic that is. So that's a good idea. And we have a lot of input that we can mull over and try to make something with.
I see staff want to say something.
Yeah, I was just gonna, I guess I would caution taking the street sweeping off the table completely, because there's other reasons we need to do street sweeping besides just parking enforcement. In the context of parking enforcement, I could see where maybe you would call it a penalty, but you know, I don't think we want to characterize something that's done for environmentally positive reasons as a penalty to the citizens. I mean, there's good reasons why we do street sweeping. And I think we need to be careful how we characterize that. And so I understand Councilmember Mackin's concerns, but I wouldn't completely take that off your list of approaches.
Okay.
Duly
Thank you.
noted. Yeah, we'll definitely make note of that.
That's
Karen has her
Karen?
hand up.
sort of what my hand was up for about the street sweeping. I don't think I wanted to ask, in general, do you think all of the council would feel that way? There is a positive in, we used to sweep every street and we weren't able to do a very good job because cars didn't move. But I think if we heard that there was interest in this as a possibility, that we haven't laid out what streets we would do on what day, but we would definitely divide it all up. So we're not even doing, one neighborhood at a time. So if we're sweeping on your block on Monday, we're not sweeping the block next to you. There wouldn't be room for every car, obviously, because there's 100% parked now, but during the daytime there might be. And it would just be a matter that you have to move your car in that time. So maybe it would be over 4 days, and on Monday we'd do your street, and Tuesday the one over, and Wednesday the next, and Thursday the fourth. We hadn't gotten into that level of detail because we wanted to hear feedback first.
If I may, I appreciate your comments on the street sweeping. It's not just the punitive. I was just concerned if it was the overnight early morning where people were having to walk in the dark long distances in the winter up those hills. That may not be safe. There's so many streets that don't even have sidewalks in the hills. But from what you said, Karen Kinzer, I think middle of the day, one of the bonuses, the people who have fleets of 10 cars, half of which they only use half of their time, it might eliminate some of those because there'd be just too many burdens with having to move a lot of cars around.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
In the sense of trying to move forward, we've had a very long discussion on this, which I think has been good. I would like us to move on to the next item into the agenda until the subcommittee can meet. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. The next item would be potential speeding issues on Mission Blue. Alex, you're the lead on that.
Great, Justin. So I'm on the subcommittee. It's myself, Patrick, and Linda. Thanks. And there was a concern of speeding on Mission Blue, over in the ridge and towards Altamar. And a study was conducted, and it did verify that there is significant speeding or on Mission Blue. And so the subcommittee was tasked to see if there's some potential solutions to address that. And I don't know if you're able to.
Yeah, I'm pulling that up.
Perfect,
right
thank
now.
you.
Yep.
So, we had a meeting with staff and with Commander Garcia and the subcommittee to discuss speeding and how to remedy that. We also, I think, identified there's probably like 2 areas that are of concern. And one is at the Mission Blue and Checker Spot at the intersection at the top of the hill, as well as on Mission Blue towards Monarch Drive near the volleyball and the baseball fields. And it's a safety concern because at Mission Blue on Monarch, there's a lot of, there can be a lot of activity of pedestrian traffic, utilizing the courts, the baseball fields, Mission Blue Center, and along the street. And on Mission Blue and Checker Spot, there's increasing pedestrian traffic as people cross the street there to go to the clubhouse and use the playground, especially as there's more and more nuclear families that are moved into the ridge. So the subcommittee, we met and we also observed the intersection, and we discussed and came up with some considerations that we wanted to present to the entire committee. And for the ones on checker spot and Mission Blue, some suggestions or recommendations would be, one would be to place stop signs at that intersection. Two would be possibly some speed bumps, similar to like maybe these perforated or lower speed bumps like that are seen in the city. And also a possibility of maybe like narrowing the perspective of Mission Blue Drive. This was brought up by staff and Commander Garcia, by staff as one approaches the crest of the hill on Mission Blue. And that would be undertaken by actually taking probably a few parking spots on Mission Blue Drive. We also had discussed other options, including the speed limit signs and radar detectors and dummy cameras and photo enforced. But after further discussion, it was felt like those actions would probably be temporary and in the long term not very effective. The other regarding, and so you can see here on the checker spot in the intersection of that can be blown up, but there's a possibility of putting stop signs on maybe Mission Blue and like at the intersection where there's the crosswalk, and also maybe a three-way stop on Mission Blue and Red Hawk. Going to the next area of concern would be the Mission Blue and Monarch, and some considerations that we had discussed were placing a stop sign there, so it would be kind of a three-way stop at Mission Blue and Monarch, placing the speed bumps, and also or even rumble strips. Rumble strips, definitely will slow the car down, but it can be it can create some noise, and so that's why it wasn't suggested for the other location, but they certainly can be effective. On Mission Blue and on Mission Blue in this area, it's kind of like a straightaway, so I think people will tend to gather more speed, and while we were there, some cars were definitely seemed like they were going over 40 miles an hour in that 25-mile-an-hour zone. So so we wanted to present this to the committee, see gather their input, maybe see if we could come up with some recommendations, and then with those recommendations discuss that with staff and seeing what was feasible or not in terms of costs and effectiveness, and then provide a survey or survey the residents of the Ridge and the Altamar, probably through the HOA, and get their input, as well as invite them to a public forum during one of our meetings to discuss this further.
Thank you, Alex. Could I have comments from the committee? Let's see. I guess Christian? Any thoughts?
Not at the moment.
Okay. James?
Yeah, it looks good. I mean, I appreciate your work, Alex.
That's all of us. Linda, did you have any other, or Patrick, any other comments or
I
things
think
that I
we
might have
came up
left
with
out?
the best possible solutions we could find, given the different things we were dealing with there in two areas. So we had to come up with some creative solutions, and I'd like to stand by that.
Thank you. I would agree with that. I mean, when the police had the radar measuring devices out there, I think the fastest speed detected was a 50 or a 55. And I walk along that street all the time, and people do go fast there. Some of them are residents, a fair number of them. It's a shortcut from West Hill Drive over to Guadalupe for commuters. But there are other routes along commercial streets that they could take, such as go down Valley Drive and then take North Hill that would get them to the same place. And those being commercial streets would not be through residential areas, as well as through next to the community center. I mean, during the week, I forget where the women's softball team comes from. They're always out there practicing. It's like the Academy of Arts Institute or something in San Francisco. They're always out there practicing. There are volleyball teams playing in the sand lots. It's not young children that are out there, but there are young adults and so forth, a fair number of people. So that's what occurs next to Mission Blue. And of course, then at the top, there are people crossing the street with strollers, going to the park, taking kids to the park. And it's a little bit blind as you come up the hill. And people, I think, coming up the hill, the fastest speed may have been 40 or 45 that was tracked on the radar. So definitely something has to be done there.
Thank you, Patrick.
I agree.
Council, I mean, did you have any? Oh, sorry.
If I may. I sat and observed the traffic for some time, and people sort of disregarded the radar sign that said how fast they were going. And people drove pretty recklessly around Checker Spot. Is that the one? The other?
At the top.
Yeah, at the top. One vehicle, and I think it was an Amazon Prime or something like that, actually went around me and into oncoming traffic to speed through. There was a lot going on there that was unsafe for vehicles and pedestrians. That's why I thought at that particular intersection, the four-way stop would be the best solution, because there is so much going on there. And with the hills, people accelerate. So I just wanted to add that in my observations. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask if City Council had any comments?
I have none. Thank you very much for a wonderful report.
I would just say you've come up with some really credible solutions, and you can work with staff to see which is financially feasible. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Staff, any comments or Justin?
So one thing to note regarding the stop signs proposed is that the general rule is that stop signs should not be implemented purely to control speed. They're intended to control right of way. And so as engineers, we follow what are called stop sign warrants in the MUTCD, which is a federal standard dictating traffic control devices. And basically, stop signs are warranted where there's a certain level of traffic volumes that would, necessitate stop control at intersections. So what we can do is, we can go out and collect data of the traffic volumes at the intersection and see if the stop sign is warranted on that basis. So that's definitely something we can look into. But Karen has something to add as well.
Well, I would say that if you're gonna, if we can do the observation, but we should include cars that are turning from Checker Spot and Red Hawk onto Mission Blue, because it's a kind of, since it's on the crest of the hill, it's a blind turn, going left or right. And, I think that represents a possible safety concern. It's not just for pedestrians, but also for, cars turning onto Mission Blue from the side streets.
Especially from Checker Spot, making a left turn to go out to Guadalupe is very difficult, because the cars below you down the hill, you can't quite see it. Well, we were out there, cars were actually edging out a little bit, and then they just slammed on the gas to get in, to make that turn. That's not safe.
Well, they have a stop and the cross traffic doesn't.
Correct. That's right.
So if I just ask that if we're going to count that data, that they be included, vehicles be counted along with pedestrian traffic as, as part of the number, if we're going to determine if there was adequate traffic volume, to make a stop sign, to reach that threshold.
Karen?
Yeah, definitely. What I wanted to add was that I think the MUTCD has officially done away with rigorous stop sign warrants, but it's still a guideline to follow. And it has to do with if you have a lot of major street traffic and only a couple of cars on the side street, it doesn't warrant a stop sign. But if you have a major street with a lot of traffic and then that minor street has a certain percentage of it that is then regularly would have difficulty, then you reach a warrant. If you have a certain amount of pedestrian traffic, then you would reach a warrant. So it's kind of the whole big picture, but Justin's point, stop signs aren't just placed to control speed, because if you have too many, everybody starts rolling them. They don't follow any of them. So when we talked, I think we talked about that as a subcommittee, I didn't have it in my notes as something that was going to go further. So
Okay.
I had, we talked about narrowing Mission Blue with shifting traffic over, so they have to adjust their speed.
Yes.
Similar maybe to what's done on Potrero Avenue, rumble strips. We talked about, the flashing white light that makes you think maybe you're going to get a ticket in the mail, but there is no camera ticketing for speed control. So that would be just a deterrent. Some things with traffic calming only work for a certain period of time. We already have done a few things out there with the pedestrian sign out in the crosswalk and the radars that flash when you go too fast, and people get used to and start ignoring them. So we recommend putting something in, seeing if it works for a while, maybe making another adjustment down the road versus inundating one location with a bunch of traffic calming measures.
You're right. We didn't discuss the stop signs when we met with the commander, and it was kind of a more recent suggestion that we wanted to bring up. Thank you.
I mean, we looked at the traffic out there. So what about speed bumps? Do people tend to ignore those? Those kind of are hard to ignore, right?
So I understood it's not an ordinance, I guess, but we wanted to check. I'm sorry, put it in my notes and I did not follow up that we had, maybe the council had adopted a policy, and this was actually, don't look at any other staff here because it was pre-2000. It was past public works director, but it was that no speed humps would go in on a street that had a slope greater than 5%, because they can catch water, get wet, be slippery, be dangerous. People have had, bicyclists, skateboarders, bad accidents. So
Okay.
I think we have to look up whether we actually do have that adopted as a policy or not.
We should also look at the slope be at those two locations. So right in front of Mission Blue, I think it gets pretty flat. In front of the Mission Blue Community Center, in front of the ball fields and all, I'd say it's getting pretty horizontal. And then at the top, at the crest of the hill, there is still some slope there, but it might be flat enough right close to the crosswalk that it might still be allowable. And then, the one that Alex found on Clayton Street, it's not a solid bump across. It's for lack of a better word, perforated, that allows drainage. So, it doesn't trap water on a hill. Water easily flows around it. It doesn't block the entire roadway. That's why we thought that might be a good option.
I think those cutouts are primarily for emergency vehicle response, but yeah, they would probably address some of the drainage. Justin was either, I don't know, remind me, an intern or a new permanent employee when he wrote an article in the Star about speed humps, and he's a good example, as he says, because the city of South San Francisco put one in front of his house and didn't consult the neighborhood, and you hear a lot of people slowing down and then speeding up right afterwards. You hear trucks delivering, rattling as they go over them, and the neighbors are, somewhat displeased with what they end up with. That everybody thinks they like a speed hump, but it doesn't always necessarily even slow people down, because then they just speed up once they get over it.
Mhm. Okay.
So I think
Those are all
we
important
should
things. Yeah.
think about that some more. Yeah.
Yeah, all things to consider. Certainly the noise, and that's why I wanted to, get input from the residents. Also, being a homeowner on Golden Eagle there, that, certainly, that's the street that would be affected quite a bit there. But, and also, finding out if like speed bumps aren't even allowable by a city ordinance, then that may push us, make our suggestion, push the recommendation towards something else, like the stop signs.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Definitely
Yeah.
not an ordinance, maybe a policy
But
adopted.
Okay. Alex, can you put maybe a deadline on this? Think we might be wrapping up?
yeah, well, with staff, can we discuss this in this upcoming month, so that maybe we can bring our final recommendations to the group by next month, so we can make the suggestions, make the recommendations? Or is that too soon?
Sure, yeah. No, I think that works. Well, I
We
know
can get a
it's,
meeting.
yeah, so I guess at the end of this meeting, if the subcommittee could stay on and we can plan a meeting for the subcommittee and staff for later this month.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Before moving
you.
on, how are we doing on time?
We are at, Linda has her hand, Linda wants to say
Yeah.
something.
Go ahead, Linda. I'm sorry.
Regarding meeting with staff about the ideas they've just given us, wouldn't it make sense for the subcommittee to meet and discuss some of those ideas and how to possibly implement those things prior to bringing it back to committee?
Yes. I think that's what we're going to stay with afterwards, just to set up that meeting to meet.
Oh, well, okay. I wasn't
Does that make
planning to
sense?
stay beyond the meeting tonight, and I was wondering.
Oh, okay.
Just meet as the subcommittee possibly, and then meet with staff. Because we've gotten a lot of good feedback and ideas, and I think between the three of us,
Okay.
we need to have a conversation before we bring it back and see what might really work.
Alex,
Yes.
that's your call.
What I think the subcommittee might also need some more information on, like the cost feasibility of, like stop signs or speed bumps, and even if it's allowed or not, because I think
generally
that may
comes-
steer it. But would
Generally,
that
the
steer
history,
our recommendations?
historically, we've made our recommendations, and then that's the feedback we get from staff with the entire committee.
Okay. I mean,
I don't know about that. I think we've done it both ways. If the lead wants staff there to give that input, I think that's all right. I mean, I think it would be better that staff is giving you, if there are, absolute no-goes, if we have an adopted policy
Right.
that we can't do speed humps, I think you want to know that before you bring it to the full committee. Maybe you three can meet and then you can set up something with staff as a subcommittee.
Right.
before
We can
the
do
next-
a couple of
That's
meetings.
fine.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think we would need more information, because like said, if one of those things are a no-go, or is like, the cost of it is, significantly much more than the other, I think that, has to come into play.
I think we know right now the two things that might or might not go. One is stop signs and one is the speed bumps. Maybe staff could look at those this week or the next few days and advise us before we meet. And then that would allow us, the three of us, to meet, and then we can
Yes.
meet again with staff. Does that
The
sound
money
like a
always-
plan?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
As long as Alex is in agreement. I think the money is
No, that's
always
yeah,
a
that's what
question.
that's what I was. Yes, no, that's what I was. Maybe I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. That's what I was. That's what I thought the plan was
Okay.
kind of going to be. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
sounds
you.
good. All right. Randy, you have your hand up?
Yes, sir. It feels like we are getting to the end of this, but I was going to suggest that we kind of end this conversation anyway. It seems I'm getting the impression that my staff has not seen this presentation before it came here. So I think we're missing the opportunity to have some thoughtful engineering discussions about this. So I would respectfully request that committee meet with staff before you bring it back to the full committee so that we can have much of these conversations in advance to help you refine your ultimate recommendations to the full committee.
Oh, we would.
Okay.
We would.
Thank you.
Yeah. Still very preliminary.
Thank you. All right. Back to the question I see no other hands. So back to the question I had, we are past 8:30. Typically, we've always just called a stop at 8:30. I don't know whether we proceed or not, so I'm looking for direction on that from somebody who's been down this road before. Liaisons, do you wish us to continue, and do you wish to continue participating?
This is not my meeting.
Okay. Staff, how are you feeling tonight? Karen? I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, I'm covering. If your committee members can keep meeting, your staff is here for you.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's continue, but let's be very brief and succinct if we could. Item E, updating the bicycle pedestrian master plan. Justin, I think that's from a staff update, right?
Yeah. So, as as we know, we already have one subcommittee looking at expanding or filling in gaps in the sidewalk network and looking at gaps in pedestrian facilities, and we're asking that subcommittee to look into that item as part of a future update of the bike pedestrian master plan. So what that subcommittee is looking at is the pedestrian side of things, and for the bicycle side of things, that is this is an item that we're bringing to the whole committee to look at any gaps or potential future opportunities for improvements to our existing bike network based on our bike pedestrian master plan. This item has been pushed back a little bit as we've run out of time in past meetings, and I've had to keep and I've had to table this to future meetings. But hopefully we're able to have some discussion tonight, and hopefully the members have had a chance to look at the bike pedestrian master plan, especially the map of existing and proposed bike facilities, and look for any opportunities to address gaps, especially with relation to the future Baylands and connecting central Brisbane and the Ridge and other existing areas of the city with future development. So with that, we're happy to take any comments that you've had if you've had a chance to look at that.
But to clarify, tonight we're not looking at connections to the Baylands because we don't have that.
Right. We don't know the transportation plan there yet.
Yeah.
Let me start by asking, I have looked at it, but has anyone else really had a chance to study that document yet? Okay. Christian? No?
Not in detail, but when we were reviewing item C, which is going to be rescheduled for next month, one suggestions, or we came across that it would be, I guess, prudent to have the the bicycle routes incorporated with Brisbane, because especially now that we want to go green for all the reasons out there in terms of the environment. It doesn't make sense if you have doesn't make a lot of sense if you have a bicycle plan internally, but it doesn't connect to the, to Bayshore, where people are going to go to commute to their work and so forth. So I would definitely suggest to incorporate that to the to Bayshore.
Thank you. Any other comments from anyone? Yes, Alex.
I don't know if this is part of this, but I was just thinking about the pedestrian component of it, and I'm just wondering, for the city, do they kind of like periodically review our sidewalks, and like if areas need to be repaired, especially on the safe streets or highly used areas? Just because in my line of work, and I work in the city, I cannot tell you how common it is for people that fall and break something that we have to fix because people tripped on the crappy sidewalks in San Francisco. And so I'm just wondering, as part of this master plan in terms of safety involving the sidewalk component, the pedestrian part, does the city kind of just check for things that need to be repaired? And because somebody did trip on the sidewalk, I don't know in the city if patients actually try to sue the city sometimes, for their injuries or whatever. I'm sure it does. But
thank you, Alex. If I could ask us to just hold that thought for a minute and address it shortly. Let's get through bicycles first, and then we can come back to pedestrians, if that's all right. If everyone else is finished with bicycle comments, I'll just give mine. I thought there are a lot of gaps where we could be connected better. And I thought there are areas that we could have, there's room for bike paths in the city. I see people training in pelotons on the weekends from South Hill to Valley Drive, making circles. I see a great bike path on Guadalupe that we just put in, I think it was last year. And yet at the top of Elderberry, there's a connection that could be made that allow people to drop in. It's a gravel road at the moment, maybe 50 feet long. That would allow them to drop into Brisbane so easily from that bike path. So I'm wondering, actually, rather than just kind of throwing it out as a whole committee thing to look at, I'm wondering if maybe we should have a subcommittee look at this, specifically the bicycle path element of the master plan, and come back to the full committee with recommendations. Justin, would you feel comfortable with that? I know I'm just looking at this. I think we've had this question at the meeting, the last 3 meetings maybe, and I just don't feel we're making progress yet, because I think we don't have just a set group that's targeted on it.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think we were thinking full committee because we know that, well, I could be wrong, but nobody is a significant bicyclist, so.
No, you are, I know, right? You're probably more than any of us. But I think, Alex, you bike, right? Alex Lau, you bike? Yes?
Not really.
No? Oh, okay. Christian?
The rest of my family does, but no.
Okay.
That helps.
Christian?
That this question came up before, and and that's exactly what I told Justin and Karen, that we need a biker to really understand the details, but that doesn't mean that that we could have some members from our committee, and we could probably reach out to a resident, and we have many bikers make comments about the problems that they're encountering, and they're being very smart and comprehensive.
Mm-hmm. Would somebody like to chair a committee, lead a subcommittee like that? Maybe Christian, since you're doing this already.
Sure, I could do that.
Okay. Would anybody like to join a subcommittee like that? I will join you. I'm not a big cyclist now, but I was in younger years, and so I know the problems of getting running into open car doors and getting Cokes thrown at you and the whole 9 yards. So I'll certainly work with you on that. Maybe we can get someone else to join. Do we need to have a vote to establish a project staff? Justin, I'm not clear on that.
No, in the past, we haven't needed a vote to establish a subcommittee. They've formed, based on volunteers.
Okay, all right. Any comments from the committee on that? No? Okay, why don't we move on then? Let's come back to Alex's question then on sidewalk repair issues. Could staff address that question?
Yeah, we have in our operating budget, we have money to repair sidewalk trip hazards, and it's been a few years since we had a really comprehensive project to do a bunch in town, but there's a fund to repair them, and we've approached it different ways, different years, going in high traffic areas and neighborhoods, basing it on service requests. So if you have particular things, feel free to use the service request system, and we can make sure that they're addressed. Again, just like you're the Eisners of the community, we're not walking every street, so we don't see all of them all the time.
So it might be helpful. Yeah. Okay. So maybe a PSA, or in the newsletter to make residents aware of, of items like this, they can place service requests, for, and it might be helpful.
Okay.
May I just make a really quick comment?
Yes, please.
The if you see something, say something campaign is in full swing. We really need to be putting that out to people. If you see something, say something. Don't just go, oh, that's bad, and let it go. That's it.
It's so easy. I mean, I'm used to calling it Go Request. I know it's the Brisbane app now, but it's so easy to use that when you see anything out of whack. You take a picture, the location data is there, and you just write what it is, and it goes off to the city. It's a really good app. So, okay.
Yeah, maybe they should put it in the newsletter just to remind everybody how easy it is and that it's available, and to report things in our lovely city.
We could put that into the "Did you know" column.
Yeah, great. Okay, moving on to, if there's nothing else on that, Justin, anything else on that?
No. Why don't we move on?
Okay. Item F, other items, expansion of safe pedestrian routes. Christian, did you have something to report on that?
Yes, and I think I did email a PDF file to Justin, so if he could share it with the rest, and then I could talk about it.
Sure thing. Yeah, give me just one moment to pull it up here.
But basically, we were tasked to survey the sidewalks on the Crocker Park, and also, I guess, just in that vicinity, we also did some observation on the dog park. So from this PDF file, what we did was, so let me explain it to you. On the top, we have a table where we have the we're starting from Bay Shore, and we're going into Valley Drive. So and then just to make clear what streets have sidewalks and what street has not. That was our task, to survey the sidewalks on the Crocker Park. And so what we have is from Bay Shore to Park Lane. On the north side, there's no sidewalk, and in the south side, there is sidewalk. So you just go down the list. Then from Park Place to Park Lane, pretty much, that's the same all the way to Cypress to North Hill Drive. And then we get the opposite. We get a sidewalk on the north side from North Hill to West Hill Drive, but no side, but but partially sidewalk on the south side. So as you can see in the table, that's what we have, and we also have the images down to show you the path. In the Crocker Park, we're showing the loop, and what we also did, the subcommittee for this project is Pat and myself, and then we also throw in some priorities and based on observations. So we're saying that the first two we should prioritize, and that's mainly because they're going to serve a shuttle bus, to do those sidewalks. And we just went and put some numbers on the other areas, but they're open for discussion, obviously. And the other thing that we noticed is in the dog park, there are some areas that don't have a sidewalk, and we feel because people walk with their dogs, it's probably safer for them to do it on the sidewalk, and it's not like a lot of this. I mean, a long stretch that is relatively a short stretch that they could do. They could put a sidewalk. I don't know if you want to add anything else, Pat.
Yeah. I guess some of the thought along Valley Drive. On the north side is where all the shuttle bus stops are located, but we don't have sidewalk on the north side along the entire length. And so, I mean, the sidewalk can provide two things. One, access. And the second thing, a lot of those stops are standing in the grass. And if we had a sidewalk, it provides a place of pavement for at least to be out of the mud. And I think that's an improvement. For the area around the dog park, and then across the street from the dog park is the trailhead for Crocker Trail, which we're getting ready to improve. There's no sidewalk access to that from central Brisbane. So both of those would be, I think, well served by having a protected sidewalk. And I would say, we get a lot of traffic, sometimes very fast on Valley Drive, trucks especially. But we also get a lot of traffic on that Park Lane, Park Place loop. And there's all kinds of parked cars there, which means that you cannot be close to the curb. You're out in traffic, in the traffic lane, if you're going to be walking along there, or you're on the grass, which, because if you have a dog, you'd be on the grass. But if it's muddy, if it's wet, you may not want to walk through the grass. So I think those are two areas that would be well served. And those are our priorities 1 and 2 that Christian pointed out. Any comments? Let me call on everybody then. Alex, are any thoughts in your mind?
No, I appreciate your comments, and I would echo those. Be nice to have sidewalks in that, and throughout, and for people not to stand in the mud. I know when my kids were growing up, my wife would push the stroller, just for long walks around the area, but they have to go in the street sometimes.
Yeah. All right. James, any thoughts?
I mean, my biggest question is, whenever I run the Crocker Park Trail, I rarely see people using sidewalks, or rarely see pedestrians out. So I was just wondering, I mean, I like the idea because there's certainly an area on North Hill Road that doesn't have a sidewalk that impacts me as a jogger. But I'm just wondering, it's kind of a global question for this discussion, like how many people in town really utilize and want to utilize sidewalks in Crocker Park? I mean, maybe it's maybe since I don't live on the ridge, but that's just kind of a thought I have currently.
Okay. oftentimes for evening meetings, I walk down.
Okay.
And okay, now, if you go there, surprisingly, there's at least in my neighborhood, there's a fair number of people who are apprehensive about walking on Crocker Trail itself.
Hmm.
And so on the weekends, you'll actually see a lot of people, husband and wife couples, sometimes people with children walking on Valley Drive. And I think as well as Mission Blue, but it just surprises me to see them so many on Valley Drive. And in terms of talking to some of the neighbors, some of them, and this is an issue that we've talked about on the Crocker Trail Technical Advisory Committee in terms of how to make it safer, or at least I don't think it's not safe, but the feeling of safety. So a lot of people do walk there on the weekends. And then there's the access, there's the shuttle bus stops along there, which people come from very different, all these warehouses and businesses along there come to congregate at those bus stops in the evening. Linda, did you have any thoughts on the sidewalks?
Not familiar enough with the traffic patterns just
Okay.
to add anything valuable right now. Apologize.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Christian. Any thoughts on a time frame here for wrapping up this part?
So this is something that doesn't require too much investigation work, I guess. So maybe by the end, for the next meeting, we could wrap it up.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. Any other comments? Staff, did you have any thoughts or comments on it?
Oh, just about whether it's not just to serve Central Brisbane or the Ridge, even if it gets people that commute to work in Crocker Park or in the area, or commute home, or both. I think I heard that the shuttle stop was used more to drop off people than was used to drop off people in the morning and pick up people in the evening, but it could be used for residents to go elsewhere to work. Maybe not in this case in Crocker, but the more people we get out of cars, the better. And maybe some people
Yes.
don't want to use a shuttle because they don't like the path to their place of employment, So we were looking for, if opportunities come up, a development or grant opportunities, is there a need? Is there a desire? Where can we improve the pedestrian network? So these are good recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on, investigate potential for one-way streets along Mariposa and Monterey. Linda, did you have anything to report on that this month? I don't think no, you and I, we really haven't looked at it, but I'd say maybe this this coming month we might look at it. What do you think?
That would be fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Final item is the proposed Old County Road striping modification. Do we have a time frame on that, Justin? On when the plans will be? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we'll want to meet with the subcommittee. That would be Linda Detmer and both Alex Bain and Alex Lau, to just sort of go over the final concept plan that staff has been working on in terms of a proposed modifications to the striping layout on Old County Road for a future pavement maintenance project that would give us the opportunity to make better use of the existing roadway space that we have. So I think the subcommittee had wanted to meet with staff first to go over that and sort of look at the safety improvements that we're proposing. And this is the same subcommittee that had previously looked at the bike lane or bike safety improvements on Old County several months ago.
Right.
And Linda, did you have something to add to that?
I'm just a little bit lost because I thought we had reached some consensus about what we were going to do and where things were already going to be placed, signage, markings, that sort of thing. And at the committee level, we had agreement. And I understand there's a lot of change now, and I have no idea what any of it is. It was alluded to, but then not really disclosed to the committee. So is it,
Right,
are we changing everything? What's going on?
Well, we had given sort of a general description of some of the things that we were proposing, but that's the purpose of the subcommittee meeting. Is we'll go over, we'll have a concept plan, and we'll show some of the changes that we're talking about. You know, addition of oh, Karen, did you have something you wanted to say?
I thought when we had some bicyclists come and ask us to look at it, that we came up with the idea of sharrows and signs. And then we talked about longer term, if we did repave, that we could consider incorporating, you know, better bike facilities and recognition and all of that. So we had a summer intern and we had them do a draft. Justin had them do a draft, and then he showed it to other staff members, and each one of us had different input. And we know this is a really sensitive area. Everybody drives there. It's the entrance to town. So we didn't want to bring something half baked and have it be, you know, just torn apart by people that use it all the time. So we did a couple rounds, and that's been why we haven't been able to have a subcommittee meeting yet. But the complete plan is, here's what we think would work. You guys tell us what you think as a subcommittee. Then maybe we revise it, who knows? And then we bring it to the full committee. It'll go through a number of steps. We're not withholding anything. It just, between us, we're like, well, this has to be pretty well thought out before we even out it, because everybody will think something about the entrance to town and want it to be the best it can be.
Absolutely. And it, just going back to our original decisions as a subcommittee, what I recall is that we talked about doing the restriping and all of that. It was never mentioned at the committee meeting that it was going to be some time, a year or two down the road, before the striping and the signage would be available to the public. And that was where we left it.
I think we did the signs. The signs are in. We may not have gotten the sharrows in.
Okay.
Justin.
But it was a surprise to me that there was going to be a delay in doing the sharrows, because we had decided as a committee that that was what we wanted. That was the decision, and it could be done. And now it's just a little bit confusing and a little frustrating to think something's done and then not have it be done. That's all.
Okay.
That
you,
might
Linda.
have been, yeah, that might have just been a mistake on our part when we had the opportunity with an intern to kind of put together something that would be in the future when we restriped, and then maybe just kind of lost sight of getting those sharrows painted. I mean, I think we'd have to look back over our notes, and apologies if that was something, you know, we got the signs in and maybe we kind of lost sight of the fact that we were going to put some sharrows down. Wasn't meant to withhold information. We're very excited to hear what you guys think.
Well, at one meeting,
Alex, you had. Go ahead, Linda.
I was just going to say that the last time we discussed this, Justin brought it up, and he wasn't allowed to complete whatever he was going to share. It was premature, and that was the first time the committee heard about anything changing other than what we had worked on and recommended and agreed upon. So this gets a little frustrating when, you know, it feels like there's this committee working its butt off, and there's other stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't get the privilege of knowing, so that we can be a part of it, because it sounds like it's not solid yet.
Again,
that's
my
rough.
my understanding was when we repaved, we would look at whether we could do more significant changes to make it better for bicyclists and everybody. So that's what this is. It isn't anything to do. If we take it to you and the full committee and everybody loves it, we're not going to do it tomorrow. We're going to have it ready for when we do repave Old County.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Alex, you have your hand up?
Yeah, thanks. May I ask, like, for the restriping, is part of that to maybe accommodate like some of the large trucks, you know, for the businesses in the center? And if so,
let's get to it when we get to it, since we're so late.
Okay. Okay. Well, the reason why I was asking is like, because with Bank of America going away in that center, you know, having that area possibly available, would that change, you know, some of the possible, striping if some of those large trucks could park there, since, you know, if that building is not going to be there or is not in use?
Okay,
That's what I was asking. Yeah. Yeah.
Private property though, so.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. That's what I was asking. I wanted to ask.
Okay, understood.
When will this plan be available to show the subcommittee?
I think we're ready to set up a meeting at this point,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
got a lot of balls in the air.
Okay, so potentially the full committee can be looking at this at the next meeting, at least on a review basis?
Yes, that's the plan. So if the
Okay.
subcommittee is available to meet sometime this month, you know, we'd be happy to go over that prior to the
Okay.
next before it's brought to the committee as a whole.
Okay. I would like to see this move forward. I felt we've been sitting on it for a couple of meetings, just kind of waiting to see something. And it sounds like we can see something fairly soon. So I think that would be good. And again, full communication between everybody, I think, would be helpful so that we all know what's going on. Okay. Okay, staff updates.
Go ahead, Justin.
Well,
your big surprise.
Sure. So, well, since it's past 9 and I haven't actually had dinner yet, I'm gonna make this short. So first, let me just start off with an upcoming project we have. So the slurry, you might have seen on social media or in the blast that we have the slurry seal project happening this week in parts of central Brisbane, as well as on Park Lane and Park Place. So the slurry seal work will be happening tomorrow, the 5th, and Wednesday, the 6th. It will affect a number of residential streets on the west side of central Brisbane, as well as Park Lane and Park Place. So we ask that, so there will be parking restrictions in place, and unfortunately, because the slurry seal has to be applied to the surface of the street, and let alone to dry, before it can be driven on, those streets will be closed between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. to enable the proper application of the slurry seal. So we apologize in advance for the inconvenience, but this is one of our annual pavement maintenance projects that we do to keep our average pavement condition index of our street network, to maintain that. So this is preventative maintenance that we're doing to slow down the deterioration of our streets. So if there's any questions on that, I'd be happy to take them. Otherwise, I'll move on to my next big announcement, which is that this will be my last committee meeting as your staff liaison, since I have accepted a new job with San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency beginning later this month. So unfortunately, so it's a bittersweet moment. I'm sad to go, and I've enjoyed working with all of you over these last few years. it always amazes me how dedicated, our committee members are to the work that they do, and putting in a lot of extra time outside of their busy schedules to help us with, get things done. So I've really enjoyed working with all of you, and at the same time, I'm also looking forward to this new opportunity to start a new chapter. So thank you for all your support. And
Thank
Yeah,
you.
congratulations.
Congratulations.
Justin.
We're gonna miss you, Justin. Congratulations.
We'll miss you.
We'll definitely miss
Miss
you.
you a lot.
So I said this
Best
is my
wishes.
last. Thank you. So I said this is my last meeting as your staff liaison, but it may not necessarily be my last meeting, because as you know, these meetings are open to the public. So, and I'm always, and I.
That would be really
Heckler
sweet of
from
you,
a heckler
Justin,
from
the
if you
other
came
city.
here not being paid. Wow.
You just want to see the new overpass where 101 exits Bayshore, the highway.
and
Definitely.
and I live in South City, and I'm always close by, and so I'll make sure to keep in touch and to stay in tune with all of the projects that are going on in Brisbane. Because I'm sure I'll find myself driving through or walking through one of these days. And I hope to see how how things progress. So it's not really the end of, I'll make sure to drop by whenever I can.
That'd be good. That'd be good. Good luck. Best of luck to you, and thank you. We
Yes.
appreciate all
Thank
you've
you,
done.
Justin.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you,
Justin.
thank you.
We will miss you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Karen, did you have any updates or?
I don't have a lot. I'm kind of reeling. I mean, I've known the news for a couple of weeks, but trying to,
Yeah.
patch as best I can. So we're looking at getting some contract help, because the city's going to have to, go out with an advertisement recruitment for a new engineer to do transportation work. So we're going to look to CSG to provide us some support, but it's only going to be half-time, 16 to 20 hours per week. So we're going to do the best we can with that in the interim.
Okay.
And if
Okay.
you ever need me, please feel free to reach out.
What's your
I'll give
hourly
you my
rate?
personal email if you want.
Really sweet, Justin.
Yeah.
I'll take your personal email. You can email it to me.
And that cell phone number.
I can't quite say goodbye to some of the projects I'm working on. So, it's always great to, keep in touch and see how those are progressing. And I'm interested to see how the parking study turns out. That'll be one I'll be following.
Yeah, definitely send us your personal email. We'll keep you posted, man.
Okay. Any other staff updates, committee updates? Okay. Item G, I just wanted to take a minute here to introduce a little bit of a different way of how we do things. And we did this tonight, and I am as guilty as everyone of doing this. That is sending presentation materials to staff at the last minute. And when I have sat on the receiving end of presentation materials and I'm seeing them for the first time in the meeting, I'm not able to digest them completely. And so what I'd like us to do is to try and get those presentation materials to staff the week before, so that then they can be sent out to us with the agenda packet. This is kind of how city council works. They accumulate all their things, and then the city council agenda actually goes out as a packet, and they have all the things that will be discussed as well as the detail that's been prepared. So I'm going to ask for everyone's help for this. I know it's not easy to begin with, and I have been the most guilty of all of us in doing it at the last minute. But I think as we work through this and make a little effort to kick ourselves to get things done earlier, I think we'll slowly see the benefits of this in that it makes us a better committee, it makes us better informed, makes us better able to discuss and make decisions at the meeting. So our thought was that it would be the deadline in order for staff to be able to get it put together and into the packet, that we would have a deadline of the Tuesday before the committee meeting. So that's basically a week. Okay, so, you know, it's kind of like daylight savings time. You just have to adjust your clock, your internal clock, instead of being last minute, tell yourself last minute is a week earlier. Okay. And what I realize that we're going to have to work through this, but let's all give it, if you ever want to give it a try, I would appreciate that. Any thoughts, any comments on that?
I think it's a great idea.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Any other committee matters to discuss?
Congratulations, Justin.
Yes,
Best wishes
congratulations.
and
Yeah,
warmest
thank you.
regards.
You want to make a motion to that? We'll make a official proclamation.
I move to congratulate
Second.
Justin.
Second. Let's have a second.
I'll second.
Second and triple.
Okay.
Do we do a roll call?
All in favor?
Acclamation. All in
I've
favor,
actually got a
raise your
dissenting
hand.
opinion.
Definitely vote
All
for that,
opposed to
Gabe.
a
Yeah,
departure,
dissenting
please
from
raise your hand.
Call to question.
point,
I can
Randy.
vote too. All right, thank you, everyone. Our next meeting is November 1st at 6:30 p.m. Do I have a motion to close the meeting?
Motion
Motion
to
to adjourn.
close the meeting.
Second?
Second,
Second.
second it.
third.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye,
It's been a
everybody.
very long night. Next time we'll be quicker. I know.
Bye.
Appreciate
Bye,
it.
Is the
everybody.
subcommittee staying with
Not me.
Justin and Karen?
Set a
I
Patrick?
can stay. I can stay.
Yeah,
I
for
can
just
stay.
a
Yeah.
schedule, something.
Linda, we'll update
Thank
you.
you.
How does that sound?
Sounds
Alex
fine.
and I will. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
This will be
you.
the last you're seeing of me.
Good night, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good
Sure,
night.
Justin. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda.
Yes.
Good night.
So are
So
you
wait,
going to rest?
we want to be not televised for this. We're adjourned.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm assuming community meeting room got that.
Okay. Ann, yeah, can you stop recording, please? And we'll just cut the meeting off here.
Justin, are you going to save the big dig? Say you're going to fix the tunnel?